IVM.
Hey, Raghavi, growing up, did you have any of these? Like, did your mom tell you any Poochandi stories basically to scare you into behaving?
To scare me? No, she wouldn't say like Pooch Andy, like scary people stories and all.
Okay.
But she would often threaten that we wouldn't get cable because
What?
we used to live in Dubai and the only way to access ZTV and stuff is through like cable, right?
Huh.
But yeah, she kept threatening that we wouldn't get it. But then jokes on me, we never got it anyway. So
Hey, man.
yeah, that was kind of mean. Now that I think about it, Mom, are you listening? Because that was really mean.
Oh, no. Okay, I didn't think that seems like emotional warfare. No.
Yeah. It's not psychological. What was yours?
So, my mom used to, when I was a kid and I wouldn't sleep, I rarely slept, okay? My mom used to say, if you don't sleep, Wee Willy Winky will come.
What is that?
Have you heard of the Wee Willy Winky story?
No.
There's this small poem of Wee Willy Winky. He runs up the something upstairs and downstairs in his nightgown.
Oh, maybe. Sounds familiar. They're all pretty terrifying.
It
all
was
of these.
no. This was
Nursery
supposed to
rhymes.
be a lullaby, and
Oh,
my
okay.
mom would be like, "If nee toongala na, Wee Willy Winky varva," and then never explain what will happen when he does come.
What if
So
he
I
just
would just-
tells you knock knock jokes and that's the end of it?
Who knows? I feared the worst, and I would just stay awake more.
Cool. So to our future therapists, these are our childhood issues. Just listen to this podcast.
Have you ever wondered why women don't do more crime?
Well, we're here to tell you there's misconduct all the time.
Women are thieves and murderers.
That's gross misconduct.
Con artists, money launderers.
Criminal misconduct.
Financial fraud that's hard to track.
Takes some planning, but still misconduct.
Even breaching a contract.
That's more civil though.
It's misconduct. It's misconduct. We tell you all about women that suck. Things that make you say, what the? It's misconduct.
Hello, and welcome to Misconduct. We are a podcast that talks about women on the wrong side of the law. And once every season, we look at someone who may or may not have existed, someone from like a fairy tale or mythology, but that woman is still seen as a criminal or wrongdoer of some kind. I am Raghavi.
And I am Nisha. And on today's episode, we will be talking about La Llorona, the subject of a pretty famous Mexican folklore. She's a vengeful spirit of a woman who roams around water bodies, lamenting and mourning the loss of her children. Children that she likely drowned herself.
Oh.
Legend has it that she still haunts multiple regions in Central America today, either lamenting the loss of her children or kidnapping other children in order to replace the ones she lost.
Okay.
La Llorona is also called the Weeping Woman or the Wailer. She is known to wander around large water bodies in a white dress that has decayed and frayed since her origin, in a body that is still decomposing today, which is awful because she is known to have been a great beauty in her youth. There are many versions of her origins, spread across Mexican, Venezuelan, Southwestern United States, and even Aztec lore. The treatment of La Llorona is just a little bit different in each culture, and that depends on how they viewed her, as a woman or as a mother or as a spirit or as a killer or just, all of it. La Llorona does have a cult status today, especially in Western pop culture. She's featured in many pieces of literature, theatre and music. She's been featured in at least 13 movies that we know of and about 6 TV shows.
But only one TV show that counts.
Girl, don't say it.
Riverdale! It is the
Yes.
best and the worst simultaneously.
Yes, there is this American TV show called Riverdale, which is loosely based on the famous characters of the Archie's comics.
Yeah, and she's not kidding about the loosely based part.
Yeah. The show is, I don't know why we watch it.
Because we are losers.
No, man. It's Stockholm Syndrome. That's what it is.
I'm okay with that. Blame it on someone else.
Yes. In any case, Raghavi and I first came across La Llorona in the show Riverdale in season 6, which took a turn from like this cute, high school drama, cheerleaders, yay, and moved straight into horror and supernatural genres.
Yeah, and like serial killers. It's
Yeah.
everyone is a serial killer.
Apparently
It's
there
crazy.
are there are a set of comics which are supposed to be scary and like ooh supernatural, but this is just ridiculous.
Fair. I hate it, but I will still watch.
Yeah. So La Llorona becomes a central character in one of these episodes, which is actually really scary for us to watch.
Yeah, but we did watch it, and we'll get into it a little later.
Yeah, I'm sure Raghavi is going to gleefully explain it.
Yes, I will. But, before we start, some disclaimers. This episode contains certain descriptions of physical harm done to children and includes gore, death, and supernatural elements. Please do consider this a trigger warning. Another thing, today we are covering a woman that forms a part of mythology and legend that's specific to communities in Central and South America. We will keep it respectful and factual to the extent that we can get that information. But if you believe we mentioned something here that is not accurate, please do tell us. We are more than happy to get the stories right, even if it means issuing a revision later on. Also, this podcast is not suitable for children. Listener discretion is advised.
Yay! Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, so there are 3 versions of the La Llorona story. One that paints her as a seductress who sort of tempts men into, wedding and bedding her, or just bedding her, whichever it is, and is considered sort of a danger to all men and their families. Like, she's a cautionary tale. Avoid this woman. She will break your family apart as if you have no agency as a man.
I swear.
The second version of this story paints her as a sadistic child killer, like a mother who never really learned how to be a mother and killed her children in cold blood. Now, this version is also a cautionary tale for some reason because kids get to choose their mothers. I don't know. In any case, this version of La Llorona also haunts, but she also kills children specifically. There's a third version of the story, and that's of a grieving mother, one who may have accidentally killed her children or killed them in a moment of insanity. This is a story of remorse where, a brief action on her part causes immense misery to her and marks her as a killer for life, something that she laments for through her life and through the afterlife.
So there is some consensus on who she was, though. La Llorona is thought to be a woman named Maria. She was known for her beauty and was coveted by both rich and poor men alike in the area.
Ah, yes, youth and beauty. It's the great unifier.
That's money, but sure, you're close.
Yes.
In one version of the story, she is said to have been courted by many, many men in her small town. She spent her days in humble clothing, except for when she traveled out at night to parties and soirees. Then she would be spotted in her best white gown. She reveled in the attention of men and was quite the temptress in all of these stories. However, she had 2 children at home who were young and in need of basic parenting. So it's not clear where the children of the father went, but does it matter? Well, maybe not, because it's pretty clear that this story exists to vilify her existence.
Right.
So she would often lament to her lovers about her children, and she called them a roadblock to her social life. She would also just leave them alone at home with no caretakers, no babysitters, just like,
okay,
you manage. This is the origin of this particular version of the story, that she resented her children and didn't really want them around. So then maybe she did something terrible to them.
Oh no, we sort of gave it away way earlier. So I'm not sure what this tension is. Anyway.
Dun, dun, dun. Go ahead.
In the other version of the story, her name is still Maria, but she was married to a wealthy man who lavished her with gifts and attention. Her beauty is what drew him to her, but apparently her kind nature and sparkling eyes, is what led him to propose to her, although we kind of suspect that as the story goes on. So their wedded life was nothing short of absolute bliss. They spent their days among lush gardens and massive living spaces because they were rich, and they spent their nights in a warm bed by the fireplace.
Escándalo.
It is scandalous, but it also sounds exactly like a love story written by Mani Ratnam. Also, just like a Mani Ratnam movie, some random drama happens in this story that doesn't fit the characters, but we'll go with it because it, the cinematography is so beautiful. Like
I can sing decently, I promise.
That's just awful. Yeah, but that's really how Mani Ratnam movies go, and this version of the story gave me that vibe, because in time, because of all the bedding, Maria and her nameless husband have 2 children. After her second son was born, Maria's husband turned into just like a big old loser. He basically decided, no, I'll tell you why. He basically decided that he was no longer attracted to Maria because of her postpartum body or something.
What?
Yeah, so He just suddenly stopped showering her with gifts and attention, and he decided to find comfort outside the home. So he began drinking heavily, gambling, and started a life of womanizing. And he would often leave her at home alone for weeks at a time.
And we can presume that he also did no parenting at this time.
Yeah, because if you're not physically there, how
Yes.
exactly are you parenting anyone? There are some days, apparently, when he was at home and he spoke to Maria about how he wanted to leave her for another wealthy woman that he had met. And also, whenever he did visit home, he would just spend some time with, the two boys and just return back to his harem or whatever. So these repeated actions apparently drove Maria over the edge and she kind of flipped.
The real victims here are the two children. So sad. Just
I know.
every version of the story, they get screwed over.
Yeah, there is nothing salvaging the children, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They are just like collateral in each of these stories.
So there's actually one more version of the story that we will get into, and that is the Hispanic folklore that has much deeper meaning to it. But let's get into it after a little break.
Are you looking for finance products and services that can enhance your personal finance experience? Are you looking for a space to talk about your financial product or service? And are you looking for a crisp talk show where the conversation is all about money? Well, your search ends here. Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta and I'm host of the Paisa Paisa podcast, and I invite you for the conversation about your personal finance on each Monday on the IVM Podcast app or the website or on any podcast streaming platforms. See you folks.
Welcome back, everyone. When we left off, we had two versions of this story. One story of a young woman who was desired by all men in her small town, but she had two children at home, which made, getting on dinner a bit difficult for her. So
Sad.
she began to resent her children. The other story is of a young married woman whose loving husband lost all interest in her after she had two children and would often
Aw.
drink heavily and bed other women. In both cases, the outcome was similar. Maria would grow so resentful of her children that she would lead them to their death. There are many versions of this as well.
Right.
In one version, Maria takes the children to a water body nearby and drowns them in the water. In another version, Maria takes them to the water body, but because she's not a very present mother, she just didn't notice them wade out too far and then they drowned. In yet another version, Maria sees them fall in and just says, "That seems like a them problem."
Oh no. There's another version of this too, where she apparently pushes them in and then immediately regrets it. But by the time she comes to her senses, like even 3 seconds between action and regret is a lot of time for a couple of children, like deep waters, right? So by the time she comes to her senses, she tries to rescue them. They have unfortunately already drowned.
There's another version. One evening, as Maria was walking down by the river with her children, her husband drove by in a carriage and he was traveling with another beautiful woman. So he stops and he says hello to his children, but he ignores Maria.
Oh man.
And then she flies into a fit of rage, sees her children, and throws them into the river.
What is such an unnecessary gaslighting moment? Like, just
Indeed.
greet your wife, goddammit.
I swear.
So there are versions of the children, dying because Maria killed them. There are versions where they die because of her neglect. There are also versions where, she seems to have done it intentionally. And there are versions where she was remorseful after it happened. So we've covered just all of the trauma
Yes.
in one go. Just all of it.
What? Imagine sitting in a therapy session with La Llorona and be like, "So what ails you?" And then she just says, "Yes."
Dude, this reminds me. There is a game called Grim Fandango, which I played as a kid. It's very similar to Legends of, as in the Monkey Temple. I'm forgetting the exact name. Secrets of the
Legends
Monkey
of the
Island or
Hidden
something.
Temple?
No, that's a show. There's a
Oh.
game called Secrets of the Monkey Island, something like that. Basically, it's an interactive thing where you try multiple scenarios. It's like make your own adventure sort of a thing.
Huh.
Grim Fandango is basically based off of, it's also a Hispanic,
Oh.
concepts behind it are very, very evident. It's about this guy. His name is Manny. He is a travel agent to the afterlife.
Ah.
So if you're about to die, he comes to you and tries to sell you packages of like, if you're a little poorer, then okay, I guess you'll just like take a walk to the afterlife. But if you're rich, here is this first class train ticket to the afterlife. But a
Very
situation
cool.
like that with a therapist makes a lot of sense because I can imagine a lot of spirits wandering this earth because they're just disturbed because they have stuff that they've never really addressed when they were growing up. And a therapist in the afterlife seems like a very lucrative opportunity. So
I know.
if you're thinking about it.
This Grim Fandango is apparently on Steam. It's rated 9 on 10 in Steam.
Dude, it was a really good game, and now it's been remastered, although it's not significantly different. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I played it very recently as well. Of course, much slower, but it's a great game.
Come, we'll play in the break.
Let's do it.
So, in all these versions of Maria's story, one thing is common. Maria broke down into an inconsolable grief over what happened. She ran down the streets of her small town, wailing and screaming, begging the universe to bring her children back to her. And that is how the legend of La Llorona was born. So Maria is known to have mourned day and night. She wore a long white dress from that day till the day she died and thereafter. She's said to have not eaten for months and months together, which is why she became thin and frail. So she was already a very tall woman, so her figure became very imposing and scary for all to see.
So Maria returned every night to the same spot by the river where her children drowned, searching for them and hoping that they would come back to her. Over time, her pristine white gown became soiled and worn down. She cried endlessly and her face became sunken and hollow. And her refusal to eat also made her look eventually like a walking skeleton. In fact, this is one of the identifiers a lot of sources for La Llorona say, that she's a tall, hollow woman looking like a walking skeleton, you know. But it was also said that she was still a young woman when she died on the banks of the river. But her years of sorrow and grief had withered away her body to just skin and bones. Not long after her death, her distressed spirit began wandering the banks of the river. People would see her drifting in her white dress, you know, floating through the trees or sort of on the current or something like that. Her dress would apparently always be spread over the waters, and her wailing and weeping could be heard by one and all. And she would just wail and wail for her children. Like, you apparently could not mistake the sound. And that's when La Llorona was born. Locals sort of stopped referring to her as Maria, and she became known as La Llorona or the Weeping Woman.
But it doesn't really end there. This is actually where it gets spookier. Over time, children were warned not to go out in the dark because the parents were scared that La Llorona would come and snatch them and throw them to their deaths in the flowing river. It's unclear where this started. It could very easily be like a Poochandi story.
Yeah.
But it appears on dark nights. Many people spotted her taking children in her arms and drowning them in the river. Now, this feels a bit weird. If she wanted her children back, how would drowning other children help her?
Yeah.
We don't know. Maybe she thought that death could take these other children and give back the children she lost. Or maybe she became deranged with grief over time and began to repeat the same patterns in her behavior.
Okay.
But we would never know. Some tales say that she would kill anyone that she would get her hands on, indiscriminately. Others say that she would choose only children that look like her own sons, killing them as a form of penance or sacrifice. In any case, she became a cautionary tale for children, mostly because this is used to scare children.
But used to scare children about what? Their mothers.
No, don't go out at night, otherwise La Llorona will come. That's why it's a proper Poochandi story, man.
Oh, it's also like stranger danger. Now, as we highlighted, there are many stories and legends around La Llorona, but at the crux of it all, it's likely that she was just an extremely mentally unwell lady, brought to her circumstances because of, either the environment that she was in, which I'm sure was very toxic, or, her inability to control her anger and her sense of betrayal. Now, this leads her to perform acts of violence on children due to her own guilt.
Oh, or maybe it's a curse. We didn't consider that.
That's also possible. I mean, at this point, there's a lot that...
Yeah.
There are a lot of stories that could possibly contribute to this because a lot of this is not written. It's mostly oral traditions that are passed down. In any case, she is therefore forced to repent for her actions. But what I'm really trying to say is it's not really the legend that is important, right? It's the implications of it. Because in the Mexican connotation of this story, La Llorona is considered to be tied to extremely patriarchal expectations that are placed on women. In fact, just in our research, we found many, many papers discussing her position as a wife and mother in Mexican culture and how the story identifies her as some sort of failed mother, maybe even evil. So, I mean, of course, her crimes, if you look at it very broadly, would be infanticide or abetment to infanticide or murder. In the other versions of the stories, it could even be gross negligence that amounted to the drowning of her children. But, of course, today, La Llorona would have her kids taken away by child protection services or something. But I'm assuming at the time that did not exist. But the important thing here is, in this patriarchal view of a woman, whose her only job is to take care of the children, apparently. She can't have any interests or hobbies outside of that. She is not allowed to experience mental illness. She's not allowed to feel any sense of betrayal by her husband. She's still supposed to be a good mother. And if she fails the ideal of a mother, then she's going to have to go and repent for it for the rest of her life.
And her afterlife.
Yeah, it never ends. Just forever.
Actually, it's kind of tough because their version of the best mother is Guadalupe, which is the Virgin Mary. And it's like, who can live up to that?
No, nobody.
Yeah.
At this point, just die. There really is no other option. God.
So now La Llorona is also a colonialism story, and we got all this from a great research paper that was done by someone from the community. So because this story is from Central America, and it's part of their identity that colonial powers have tried to erase from a very long time, but at the same time profiting off of it.
Of course.
So this version of the story speaks of a Spanish sailor or soldier who came to La Llorona's land in Central America in the company of other soldiers.
Right.
So we can say that from here, soldier actually comes with a connotation of violence. They were invaders, not peaceful settlers. Also, the soldier is gendered as male, as a man, to throw in the notion that he comes with violence in his heart. La Llorona is, however, gendered as female. So the intention here is to kind of equate her to the motherland herself, and as in that's the land that belongs to the locals, the natives. So you can see where this story is going.
Yeah.
Right? So the union of the soldier and La Llorona is kind of like the domination of the conquistadores over the natives.
Got it. Okay.
I feel like I'm pronouncing that word wrong, but anyway.
She meant conquerors, if
Yes,
there was
that
any
one.
doubt there. Yeah.
So now the children that are born from this union, they are kind of representative of the children that have moved to US, like the Americas.
Okay.
They're kind of like depressed and voiceless victims of the land. They're neither here nor there. They're stuck in the middle ground of being natives, but also have Spanish blood. So they're merging of two cultures, and they don't really know which one they entirely belong to.
Oh.
So I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we relate to that as well. Like we weren't born and brought up in India. And because of that, we don't understand a lot of the traditional and cultural things,
Right.
which would have been interesting. And we do identify as Indian. But then we also like, there's a gap. So suddenly we're like, who are we? Have you ever felt that when someone asks you like,
Who
so where
you
are
are?
you from? And you're like,
Dude, that conversation is always, I'm here, but I used to live there, but I'm actually from here, but I never grew up there. It's always like that,
exactly.
And realistically for us, and I'm sure a lot of
I
India's
think a lot
urban
of army
population.
kids also would feel that way, no?
I'm sure, but I think the distinction is when you are an army kid, I feel there is some degree of patriotism that is automatically attached to who you are.
Yeah.
So you feel that connection, even if it is a little scattered. In fact, I would think that would sort of be a major unifier because you're now meeting people from all over the country, right?
Yeah.
The armed forces are extremely diverse. But I think the difference for us especially was that it wasn't a particularly diverse upbringing because especially Indians that live outside India tend to flock together.
Correct.
Still keep it within their communities because that's what they understand. Like imagine our parents moved wherever they did, and for them, their identity was rooted in being Tamil, for example.
Yeah.
So, they would seek that out, right? And I understand that that's how a lot of
A
immigrant
kinship
populations
is
work.
formed, yeah.
Exactly. But that becomes sort of like a bubble or almost like an echo chamber in many ways. So we only know the stuff that our parents probably immediately related to. We wouldn't know the broader context of it. We like never learned Tamil. Those are not things that we did. Having said that, I understand the privilege that comes with it. We are, of course, an urban population. We were exposed to a Western understanding. Like I had the internet way before any of my cousins did,
That's true.
So, yeah, there is that weird in-between space that we are at, fully acknowledging that it comes with a lot of privilege. But there is that sense of identity confusion that I get what you mean from that perspective. Yeah.
So back to the Maria La Llorona story. When the soldier or the father abandons them without any resources or common identity, the soldier has basically doomed the mother and the children. So it's kind of representative of, the mother being the native land, that they've profited off the land and they've left. So this effectively leaves the children disassociated from their mother because they don't identify anymore with the mom. And it's kind of like a metaphorical death or a drowning. So that's the kind of status that La Llorona holds this legend holds in Hispanic culture. So, and we find it particularly heavy. Like so far, it's just like Oh, cute story. Oh, ghost story. And then suddenly you're like, oh, colonialism.
Yeah, that was a little like a hard pill to swallow because
Yeah.
Nisha and I were first exposed to, like we said, on Riverdale. Like a
Yes.
nonsense TV show, right? But then, of course, when we looked into it and we realized that so much of this is so integral to Hispanic identity, Latin American identity, we were just like, whoa, okay, this is not a joke. We were treated with like some degree of like gravity, right? That's where we were coming from with this. But we will let you mull over that for a bit while we go on break, and we will see you in a bit.
Hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Misconduct, Raghavi and Nisha analyze actress Riya Chakrabarti's case with lawyer Anshul Chaudhary. On The Habit Coach, Ashton sheds light on existential crises and how to deal with them. On Cock and Bull, Puneet Akash and Antariksh discuss India's projections to surpass China as the world's most populous country by 2023. On Don Baika Gappa Aika, Avanti and Aparna talk about how comparisons affect our daily life, our family, and society at large. And on Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Elon Musk abandoning the Twitter deal. Before I leave, I just want to remind you all that we have some amazing merchandise for you guys. Please go to our website, click on the shop tab, and check out the collection of t-shirts. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Don't forget to rate us on any other platforms you're listening to us. And remember, you can also check us out on YouTube. We're also doing a small listener survey, which helps us understand who you all are. I mean, our listeners. And we'd really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It helps us build better shows for you. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Boat Lifestyle, Small Case, Capgemini, and Intel vPro. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back, everyone. So before the break, we spoke about the various iterations of the Llorona story. Like we said, there was the story of the woman who was betrayed. There was one of the women who dumped her own children for her self-interest. We also uncovered the male-dominated understanding of how an ideal mother should be. And lastly, we spoke about the colonial context in which La Llorona was portrayed and how that influenced Hispanic understanding of the Spanish invasion. Now that you have enough knowledge about the story itself, let's now move on to
the bastardization by Hollywood.
Yes, popular culture sucks. So as, you know, New Mexico became a part of the Americas, of course, stories started traveling from down south, from Central America, from Latin America, further up north. And they traveled very swiftly, which is why, you know, people decided at some point, look, this is an interesting story. The best we can do as a Western civilization is to turn it into 400 movies and TV shows. And then, you know, just let it be a meek reflection of what it once used to be. And Hollywood is great at that.
Oh, yeah. So as we said before, there are multiple movies made about her. The latest one is a monstrosity that was released in Jan 2022, which received a 3.4 out of 10 on IMDb.
Why even make it? It's just disgusting.
The sort of first one, I guess, is from 1960 and it is rated 6.1.
Sure.
So let's go through that plot first. We are in 20th century Mexico. There's a newlywed couple, Felipe and Margarita, are visited by Margarita's father, Don Gerardo Montes,
Wow.
who tells them the story of La Llorona. So, turns out his ancestor was the one who betrayed her, and hence the family is cursed to never have a firstborn. Margarita's brother was also murdered by this ghost.
Oh.
Yeah. So the couple listen to the story and then they're like, yeah, there's no way that's true. They have a baby.
Of course.
And to take care of the baby, they hire a nanny. And the nanny acts like hella sus. But for some reason, only the husband sees it. One day when they leave the baby alone with the nanny, the husband feels like, dal mein kuch kala hai. And then he just like runs, but in Spanish, whatever that version is. El dalo, el calo. I don't know.
What?
So he rushes home and he finds that the nanny is holding a dagger over the baby. And he tries to stop her, but then she disappears, for she is a ghost.
Oh.
Yeah. And then he burns the dagger and then the curse is lifted and that's the end of that.
That was a very easy fix. It's surprising that the husband in this movie is the one that notices something. Usually it's the woman that's like, you know, that they gaslight into pretending that she's going crazy. And the husband is like the ghost is right here. And the husband's like, what? I don't see it.
Which
I don't
ghost?
see anything. You are crazy, lady. I will divorce you. That's usually how that stupid shit goes. But let's do the 2022 movie also, the 3.4 one.
3.1, 3.3.4.
Whichever.
No, you're
It's-
right.
it's-
Sorry.
Sorry, the real rating is ass. So go on.
Okay, fine. So, and this is what pisses me off. Like, at least in the first one, it was like Felipe and Margarita and things like that.
No.
This
Here it
one
is
is-
Chad and no.
Andrew, close enough.
Chad and Rebecca move into a spooky house. Why did they pay $200 million for this clearly dilapidated house?
I know.
There is a ghost in the window. I can see it right now.
So, this movie is Andrew and Carly Candlewood,
Mhm.
along with their son Danny, travel from California to Mexico for a much needed vacation.
All right.
Their getaway is not what they think when tales of missing children, along with the town legend of La Llorona, soon encompassing their trip. The spirit begins to torment the Candlewood family and kidnaps Danny. Along with a resourceful taxi driver Jorge, the family races to save Danny. They must navigate the spirit's power along with cartel thugs that roam the countryside. Spoiler alert, they are all fine in the end and the spirit is gone.
Oh.
Or is it? Dun, dun, dun.
The thing is, we actually don't know. We haven't watched
Yeah.
any of these movies. I would generally not be, the kind of person who would not do that. But there are 13 movies.
Yeah.
And also, it's scary. I'm scared.
Oh, scary. So we just Wikipedia the plot.
But there is one iteration of this story that we have watched, as we mentioned, Riverdale's episode on Ya Llorona. This was season 6, episode 2. Why did it make it so far? I don't know. It's also very pretentiously called Chapter 97 Ghost Stories. So anyway, we powered through it. So La Llorona's name was actually Martha Malone, and she was a nurse in the children's ward of River Vale's first hospital. I know what I said. I said River Vale. There's too much context to this. It's for later. In those early years, apparently, they lost many children to the pox or the cold or, from a doctor's careless hands. The townsfolk blamed her for the loss of their children and accused her of being a witch woman. And they dragged her and her own children, why, to the Sweetwater River, weighed them down with rocks and threw them into the dark waters. Anyway, obviously, she became a spirit of vengeance and she's forced to roam, around Rivervale, murdering all their babies, including the unborn child of Betty and Archie. Yes. That was really weird. Ultimately, she kills baby Anthony. What is baby Anthony's first name? It is Baby. Yes. He is the child of the serpent leaders. I hate doing this. He's a child of the serpent leaders, Tony Topaz and Fangs Fogarty, who were both queer until they decided not to be. Does this make any sense to you? No. Same.
So apparently the serpents killed some rival gang members called the Ghoulies, amongst whom was a son of a certain Darla Dickinson.
Why is everyone's name in this universe an alliteration?
Because nice. Yeah.
Shut up. How that doesn't how often does that happen in real life?
I don't know. You tell me. Raghavi Ramesh.
Oh shit. I should stop throwing stones from this
Yes.
glass chamber, glass house. Sorry. Anyway, there's more to the story. To take revenge on Tony, Darla Dickinson, aka
No,
Martha
do it.
Malone,
Say all the
aka
names. Do it.
La Llorona. I'm doing it, man.
Say
Anyway,
Tony Topaz.
they try to take revenge on Tony Topaz. The spirit finds this child, baby Anthony, and they're about to drown him in the river when Tony stops her and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, for what La Llorona has endured." And she asks that they show mercy. But La Llorona in this story says that she cannot, return without the child. So Tony says, "Okay, I'll take away your suffering. I will become La Llorona." Martha agrees. She gives baby Anthony back to the group. Tony trades place with Martha and becomes La Llorona. And before retreating into the water, Tony tells Betty to protect baby Anthony and let him know that she loved him. There's supposed to be a moment of a lot of emotional turmoil. And all I felt in that minute was, wow, this episode is 1 hour long. I really have to pee.
Anyway, all of this is erased from canon a few episodes down the line because
Yeah.
it's some fever dream that Jughead had or something.
Guys,
like
this show is a trip, man. And you know what? Till date, I will never forgive Nisha for introducing me to the show. The thing is, the way she described it in that moment when she told me this, I was like, ha, it sounds like something you can watch as a hate watch. It'll be
Yes.
it'll be a cult thing. I can and now I'm sucked in. I cannot escape
I
this.
know.
Please don't watch this show. Please.
Alternatively, just start from like season 6.
No,
that's the
listen.
most.
Season 6, as of our episode airing, season 6 will be ending soon. I would recommend go straight to season 7.
That's true. Yeah, just
Because
don't
there's no
even
point.
bother.
No, actually, why did I say that? Don't watch the show. Shut up. Don't watch this damn show.
Oh, also, there's a 2019 movie called The Curse of La Llorona, or The Curse of the Weeping Woman, which I think was one of the movies that did the best, right? So it's
Sure.
the 6th installment in the Conjuring universe franchise, apparently.
Okay.
So the film stars Linda Cardellini. She is famous for playing Velma in the Scooby-Doo movies.
Okay.
The movie follows a mother in 1973 Los Angeles who must save her children from a malevolent spirit trying to steal them.
Okay.
She survives. The kid survives. They're all fine. It's a waste of time, this movie. The worst part, it was a part of like this whole other franchise.
Yeah.
And actually this scene involving the franchise comes like right in the end for like half a second.
Oh,
It's like the entire
callback.
movie happens. Yeah. The entire movie happens, and in the end, there's a priest who like helps with all of this, because obviously there's a priest that helps with all of
Of
this.
course. Yeah.
And he's like, and like when they ask him, like, oh, how did you know how to solve this problem? He's all, I have dealt with it before, Annabelle doll. That's all. That's it.
Oh. Okay. That sounds, wow, they really think they're the Marvel Universe, no?
Correct.
God damn it.
Also, there was some overall racial issues in this production.
Yeah, correct. That seems correct only. Yes.
Yeah.
Go
yeah.
on.
The main cast is all Caucasian.
Okay.
Yes. If you are appropriating Mexican folklore, at least have the decency to cast Hispanic actors.
Correct.
Including the priest, by the way. Even the priest is Caucasian.
I mean,
The
I get it. I
Mexican
guess he's
priest.
supposed to be he has a Latin American name. Oh, then that's just dumb.
Exactly.
Yeah, here is Chris Pratt. He is playing
Felipe.
no, forget that. He plays someone who works in an IT company.
Oh.
He is a product manager. He's Indian. Yes, believe it. God.
Is it? His name is Sampath.
Chris Pratt in an ass. Sampath Kumar. Disgusting.
So there were multiple Twitter posts out at the time from the audiences talking about how this story was so important to Hispanic and Latin identity, and how they felt upset about the portrayal of La Llorona as this mean, murderous woman.
Right.
So one such tweet said, I showed my mom the trailer of La Llorona, and she replied with, La Llorona no hable English.
Basically, that translates to La Llorona does not know English.
It is so fair.
That's correct. I mean, does she speak English in this movie? Why
I
does
guess
she speak in
so.
this movie? I
That's
don't know.
true.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, might as well
Right.
suppress her literal voice at this point.
Oh, wow. Beauty.
Thank
Beauty, Raghavi. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
So another issue is this with this movie was that in order to promote the movie, the filmmakers went to different movie theaters and performed limpias or Mexican spiritual healings before the screenings.
Right.
So this drew a lot of criticism from actual Mexican traditional practitioners because limpias are not actually like exorcisms, right?
Okay.
They're not meant to be used to remove spirits or bad juju or something.
Okay.
They're actually intended as a form of cleansing to bring
Oh.
new and good luck.
Okay.
And it's a holy practice. It's not something with a dark history.
Mm-hmm.
It's the equivalent of conducting like a homum for us.
Right. Okay. Correct. Makes
Yeah.
sense. Mhm.
The movie also released on an Easter weekend, which meant that audiences would now associate bad limpias with a good coming of Jesus. So, which is a pretty colonial way of looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, that's really messed up. Who?
Yep.
Which PR? Dude,
I
okay.
have
This.
no idea. But I would get it if I was a PR person who's thinking about, oh, these are these practices that we could do to like attract other people who don't understand the intricacies of this culture. So,
Oh, cool. So all publicity is good publicity. That's the way they're going.
pretty
with it.
much.
Yep. All right. Mhm.
So there's a San Diego-based healing practitioner called Grace Sesma, and she's also called a curandera, who are these, I mean, a crude way of saying it is the Mexican priest who perform these limpias. She apparently received press requests by publicists asking to conduct these limpias at one screening, and she ignored all the calls. And eventually she saw multiple photos of these rituals being performed. And She said, I found it quite shameful. It heightens the fear factor around a traditional practice and commodifies and exploits our culture just to get people to see the movie.
I mean, she's right. Like, I understand
Yeah.
it, if it's coming from a place of, I'm sure it wasn't coming from necessarily a place of malice. I don't think the filmmakers necessarily looked at it like that. But then that's just how prevalent it is, to
Yeah.
consistently not make that effort to find out what it is.
Yep.
That shows a sense of like just refusal to try. So it's not malicious in the sense that it's not similar to the actual, La Llorona colonialism story. It's not as violent as that, sure, but it is still sort of aggressions that over time lead people to think that these are cultures that aren't, very heterogeneous, that they have, that they're all, it's all voodoo, it's all
Yeah.
faith that's not based in
It's-
reality. It really pushes
Right.
that narrative quite a bit.
It's a very let them eat cake kind of way of looking at it. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, let them do it. I mean, what is there? It's just Olympia. Just do it. No, that's
Oh,
not how it works, right?
I feel like you misunderstood let them eat cake.
No.
That was Marie Antoinette saying, oh, poor people don't need nutrition. Why
No,
don't they eat
it's
cake?
actually-
That's how
it's-
she says it.
That's not this thing of Marie Antoinette, by the way.
What
She
is it
says it
then?
because she doesn't understand it.
Yeah, because she's stupid. I get that.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it's not out of a way of they don't need nutrition. It was like why do they need bread? They can eat cake instead, right?
Oh, yeah, I
She's
guess
very
we're both saying
stupid.
the same thing effectively. It comes
Ah.
down to the fact that it was dumb. So
Exactly.
you're right. Yeah, it's not malicious in the sense that she's not like, oh, behead those peasants. She's
Yeah.
just saying stupid stuff instead.
Exactly. Because she's stupid. She doesn't understand the connotation of things.
I
That's
get
what
it.
I meant. In
Got
fact,
it.
there was some of these curanderas, they actually put out the emails that they got from the publicists,
Uh-huh.
asking them to conduct Olympias in various theaters.
Mhm.
And it's the same thing. It was basically like
Oh.
someone copy pasted the email and then forwarded it to a bunch of asking them to perform this thing.
You
It's
know
like,
what?
hello, insert name here.
That's terrible.
We are releasing this movie. Do you think you could soil your reputation?
Oh God. That's the
So,
thing. You know
yeah.
what? When I read stuff like this, on some level, I think, you know what? I wish this legend was really true. Because can you imagine the sort of wrath that La Llorona would just straight up just throw
I
at these
swear.
people just for this? And in fact, there have been a few incidents. We don't know if they're necessarily true, but there have been incidents around water bodies in New Mexico and Santa Fe where people have said that they've actually spotted her. In fact, there was a police force in New Mexico that received multiple complaints about what sounded like a woman's voice wailing and crying by a lake. And people were like, I can kind of see something. I mean, it could be hallucinations. It could just be the mist. I have no idea.
Yeah.
The wailing could just be a raccoon that was mad. It's possible, but there are multiple incidents of people saying that they've
Yeah.
spotted La Llorona, not necessarily knowing her by name, but describing something that really sounds like her. So you know what? If she exists today, I would expect her to just unleash her wrath on anyone who gets the story wrong and who does nonsense like this. It's like, who was the guy, the archaeologist who broke into Tutankhamun's tomb? I can't remember his exact name.
That
But
guy.
apparently, yes, the entire expedition and their families were cursed.
Yeah.
I don't see why. I mean, they say that. I'm assuming they all just died because of lack of access to penicillin. But it's just, I would be very, very happy if something like that,
I
just a
know.
very, very annoying curse. Like all the filmmakers who made movies about La Llorona will now only be able to drink warm beer. Their beer will never be cold.
Or
Something
every
minor like
time
that.
there is even a little bit water around them, it will somehow spill on their dress.
Oh no, I hate it. Their socks are always, this is one wet spot on their sock. Always. Just a minor aggression like that from La Llorona.
Yeah.
Because she is associated with water. So
Exactly.
Just every time. Just like, clean socks. Nope, wet. How did this happen?
So this actually, since we're talking about wailing women in water bodies, this reminds me of the episode from Love, Death and Robots, the Jibaro episode,
Yes.
from the new
Oh.
season.
Yeah. I have not watched it. I've only heard so no
You should.
spoilers.
No spoilers.
Nisha
It's
watched
very
the
good.
thing, guys.
I did.
Nisha
I did.
has watched a thing. You should know Nisha also watches Riverdale. Because
I do.
Yeah.
I've seen it from season 1, man. I am a Riverdale, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
Nisha,
know how
have
to
you
say it
watched
in-
Gone in 60 Seconds or National Treasure? Any of these movies? No. I have
Jurassic
watched
Park?
Riverdale. Shut up. Don't even try. I'll slap you.
So the thing is, despite La Llorona's overwhelming presence in forms of folklore and media, from legends and songs to poetry and film, she remains little studied.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine how lovely it would be to have this story in a written format with different versions coming together to give us an understanding of the folklore graduated over time.
Mm-hmm.
Parts of India luckily got to experience that because thankfully there are some stories that are so ancient and in written form
Yeah.
that we will never forget them.
Mhm.
And we also have multiple variations of it coming from different parts of the country.
Mhm.
This actually, one of the biggest examples of this is Jaya by Devdutt Patnaik. He talks about Mahabharata
okay.
and he talks about stories across the country. So I get that. And I feel like all folklore, all of these stories should definitely have that solid writing with all versions covered. And unless marginalized literatures are documented and studied, we are never going to really know how important a story like this is for that specific culture.
That's right. And on that note of both hope and abject sadness, we bring this episode to an end. And we hope you really enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this episode, if you genuinely like this, please listen to the rest of our episodes. We are available on IVM Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts.
I have a suggestion for everyone who wants to support us and wants to listen, but has other things to listen to as well.
Mhm.
Play it and go to sleep. It will continue to play. Thank you, Akshay, for those random blips that we got because you just fell asleep listening to one of our last episodes and then listened to the entire season 1.
Thank you, Akshay, for your unexpected support.
Yes. You can also review us on Spotify, Apple, Audible, YouTube. Leave comments there and any other podcast hosting platform that you use.
Yes, also please follow us on our social media. We are currently on Instagram under the name Misconduct Pod. We have memes, true crime content, reels, whatever you need. Just a lot of that. And cats. Sometimes there are cats.
Yeah, and then also sometimes Raghavi and I are both on at the same time and we will both chat with you and
That's
confuse the hell out of you.
That's
But it
true.
will be fun.
Apologies to everyone that happened to.
Yes. And we will see you on the next episode of Misconduct.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey.
What is the workplace and how does your gender and body affect your right at work? Hey, I'm Priya Mirza, and on the Longest Constitution podcast, we critically examine the vision of the Indian Constitution and laws. In season 1, we looked at sex, gender, sexuality in India, and the landmark judgments which transformed our rights as citizens in this country. In season 2, we discussed the laws which shape the workplace and examine how ability, competence, and merit impact us, and much more. Join me, Priya Mirza, every Wednesday only on the IVM Podcast app, website, and all the major podcast streaming platforms.